about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So before we begin this next hour, I wanted to kind of bring up something that I think is really relative to life. And I know some of you guys are going to get mad, that I'm bringing this up, but I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. Yay! Have at them Cowboys. And I've always loved the Cowboys, but they're in a 30-year kind of slump. I don't think they've won a Super Bowl in nearly 30 years. Over 30 years now? No, 30 years? Yeah, and I watched America's Dream. It was a Netflix show. Let me see, what was it called? It was America's Dream. Yeah, The Gambler and Cowboys. And so it talked about the Cowboys' legacy and Jerry Jones and some of his decisions. And I'm glad, actually, shut my volume off there. I'm glad I watched it because I've been very frustrated with Jerry Jones. I think a lot of people are. But there's a lot of life lessons that we pick up seeing these docuseries on people's rise and fall. Now, I knew what was going on with the Cowboys kind of superficially during the 90s. The 90s was one of their huge legacy years. I mean, you got the Roger Staubach era, but then you have the 90s, the Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Marv Irwin and Deion Sanders and gosh, I don't want to forget anybody. Emmitt Smith, they were just all. But anyway, you had the dream team. I was in school. I was an undergrad, and then I was in college, and so I always worked Sunday, so I never really had time to watch. I only got bits and pieces, and I knew Troy Aikman was pretty good. I knew Emmitt Smith was awesome, but this show reminded me of a lot because when I talk about the Cowboys with my friends, now I remember some of the stuff in the 90s, but it's a blur, and this kind of reinvigorated and kind of reminded you, like the Herschel Walker trade. Well, basically what happened in essence is Jerry Jones decides to buy. He was a risk taker himself. I don't think he was born rich. I think his dad owned a shop and they lived on the top floor of that little store or on the second floor. And so he was a Razorback, I believe. He played, I forget which position in college football. So he played college football with Jimmy Johnson, who was one of his best buddies. And then he ended up making some real estate investments. He kept borrowing money. And apparently he said he was in so much debt that his wife was worried and calls, her father. So now the father-in-law is getting involved. Like, what's going on here? But then I guess he invests in oil rigs. And according to the story, one hits. And he makes $100 million. And he says, I'm going to buy a football team. He had originally wanted to buy the Chargers, I think when he was only 28 years old, and he went to the Teamsters for loans, and he met Jimmy Hoffa, and his father was like, you're not going to be, working with Jimmy Hoffa and the mob. That's not a good idea. And so he ended up not buying the Chargers, and it got sold to the Klein Group. That's neither here nor there. But what's interesting is the fact that you would be in debt and you would keep borrowing. See, I'm not a risk taker. I don't double down. I don't do that because I usually lose. Well, he won. I mean, he hit his rig struck oil and he made a lot of money. But it was interesting where he had that gumption, those guts, that grit to keep going. So then he ends up buying the Dallas Cowboy football team, and he buys the team that was at their loss. Sometimes you want to buy at the low price, just like with stocks. You want to buy it low, but you want to make sure it's not going to be a failure. And so one of the best players they had was Herschel Walker. They decided to trade Herschel Walker. They're the best player they had. I think they traded him to the Vikings. That allowed them to get 5 players and multiple draft picks, and that's how they get Emmitt Smith. And that's how they start getting some of their other players. And they basically shake it all up. They end up drafting Troy Aikman. They draft their team, and then they end up getting, especially under Jimmy Johnson, then 2 Super Bowl wins. Then Jerry decides to fire Jimmy Johnson. There's the fights and there's the, who gets credit for what. And then they go through a whole bunch of coaches. And now we're at the point where the Cowboys are very, very micromanaged by their owner, because even though the owner might have made a good move with that, Herschel Walker trade, he is still, many people feel he's in the way. And I'm not here to talk football, but this idea of going 2 steps forward because you took 1 step back is very common in life, whether it's health or not. Like, you need to cut to heal. Now, if I'm having a bad appendix, you got to take it out. And sometimes that means cutting you open. And in medicine, we always cut to heal, or we understand that sometimes a treatment, might necessarily, I don't want to say hurt, but cause a regression in, shall we say, the body's processes, because we know it's going to heal. So, for example, let's say you have a really bad wound and you never got stitches. And so the wound now didn't heal right, and you have some poorly healing tissue. We might debride and clean out that poorly healed tissue just so then the new tissue could grow. It's this, 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of idea. And that's what I gleaned from this, America's Team Netflix series. They sometimes you might want to hold on to something. Go, well, I think it's valuable. And sometimes you might just need to, like, let's say you're living in a house that you don't need. It's 3,500 square feet, and you don't need that. And you might be able to get ahead if you sell it, go to something smaller. And we forget to do that because we think we always have to move forward. We always have to gain. We have to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and not necessarily. Now, the idea of micromanaging, that's another big lesson. Now, I understand Jerry Jones has some football experience. He played, but that's not what he does. As a doctor, I'm a family doctor, so I know a lot about everything. I know a lot about OB. I know a lot about geriatrics. I know a lot about pediatrics. But if I need a specialist, I got to take a step back and let that person do their job. And that's also hard to do. When you look at your family dynamic, you'll have some people in the family where they have talents and they have some gifts. And I'm starting to learn that even with my family, even though I'm mommy. Okay, mommy's, been in charge, with the kids and things like that. Sometimes, give the kids their job, their roles, their responsibilities. And then that allows you to rest, gear up, and fix what they mess up. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So I'm really happy about this. President Trump is demanding that drug companies make their data on how effective these COVID vaccines are for the public currently now, and make their data transparent. He says, it is very important that the drug companies justify the success of their various COVID drugs. Many people think they are a miracle that saved millions of lives. Others disagree. With CDC being ripped apart over this question, I want the answer, and I want it now. This is what he wrote on Truth Social. He says, I have been shown information from Pfizer and others that is extraordinary, but they never seem to show those results to the public. Why not? He says they go off to the next hunt and let everyone rip themselves apart, including Bobby Kennedy Jr. and CDC, trying to figure out the success or failure of the drug companies' COVID work. So Trump and Biden both get credit for rolling out the vaccine. Biden started ticking me off when he mandated. He promised he wouldn't mandate the vaccine. He mandated it. And then he threatened to pull funding of hospitals. So hospitals started firing their nurses. He discharged people in the military who wouldn't get the vaccine. And so as a doctor and as a patient and as an American, the question I had is, look, I understand that these vaccines could save lives. And I'm very happy we have the vaccines. And you rolled them out. And Trump helped get the drug companies to do the R&D and get them fast-tracked. I'm very grateful for that. But are they now as relevant for the general healthy population? You know, which vulnerable groups need to still get vaccines? Do we need to be giving them to pregnant people? What does the data show? And we aren't getting access to that. Now, 70% of Americans ended up getting both shots of the COVID-19 vaccine. Many of us did not want to. It was under duress. Some of us got a booster. Now, fewer and fewer people are now getting the boosters or the COVID shots. Those high risk that want them are getting them. But there's a lot of individuals who said, no, thank you, but no, thank you. Now, when us physicians said, look, we also cannot underestimate natural immunity. Our natural immunity is one of the strongest things on this planet. They can't make a metal as strong as our natural immunity. Our natural immunity is amazing. So how do we do this? How do we get immunity towards COVID? And when a doctor brought that up in Maine, her license was suspended and she was ordered to have a psychiatric evaluation. That's how scary it got. And for those of you who have been listening to the show this whole time, we spoke about that, going, this is getting ridiculous. They're basically threatening to take away our licenses unless we unless we go against everything we learned and change the narrative. And that was frightening. Because now the studies are showing the combination of natural immunity with the vaccine immunity was probably one of the most powerful combinations. So we did need natural immunity, but the only way to get natural immunity is for the virus to, sadly, infect us. And we never advocated for you to get sick. I think what COVID did to us, because we didn't know how it was manipulated or what happened in the lab. As far as I'm concerned, I'd rather have the vaccine than COVID itself. But I got COVID, and probably because I had COVID, now I'm more sturdy against these strains. And for the most of us, thank God, we're not dying of COVID. But people are starting to now question, so do we still need to give the shot? Do we still need to take the shot? So when RFK Jr. or Bobby Kennedy Jr. comes up to the HHS and says, guys, we're going to reevaluate this. Right now, we don't have to give healthy 6-month-olds the shot. Let's look at the mRNA vaccine and know for sure. That sounds like common sense to me. It's there if they want it. It's there if the doctor thinks they need it. But let's look at it. Let's evaluate. That's what we do in science. People are giving him a bunch of crap for that. And vaccine science is always evolving. The COVID vaccines were very rapidly made. And I'm glad they were. I don't feel they're 100% safe. I don't think anything is. And people did die from the vaccine. People did suffer some serious conditions. But because COVID killed more, we understood that the benefits outweighed the risks. And we were thrown for a loop, and we did the best we could. What should have never have been done is we should have never fired officers, nurses, doctors, military. We should have never done that if they said, I need to hold off with the shot. But the way the government was acting was that we all had to be on board. We all had to, especially in medicine, continue to perpetuate the narrative of you got to get the shot, you got to get the shot. And if you don't get the shot, you're going to spread COVID and kill people. And I'm like, but you go get the flu shot and still give people the flu. What are you talking about? You could still get it. Herd immunity is not going to happen. The idea of herd immunity, if you remember, they were talking about where herd immunity comes from, where if you have these innocent, vulnerable little lambs or little calves in the herd, and all the big animals are surrounding them like a shield with protection, the babies aren't going to get hurt because of the protection of the bigger herds or the stronger ones. And that was the idea behind vaccination and herd immunity. If you vaccinate so many people, then that protects the individuals who can't get the vaccine. And herd immunity is a concept that does exist. I just didn't think it was going to be attainable with the COVID vaccine. Because the idea if you get the shot, you'll never get COVID was wrong. I got COVID despite getting the vaccine. And I got it, and I got it hard. And then the vaccine immunity waned, just like the flu shot. So getting one shot, then getting a second shot, then having to get it a few months later. And they were advocating we might need to get this 4 times a year. People gave up. And as I predicted, parents were so sick of the whole topic that they said, to hell with this, I'm taking my kid out of school, so now I don't have to vaccinate at all. And that's what ended up happening. So now that there's all this, blowback, because RFK Jr. wants to look back at the data and see, is it still relevant today? Do we need to be advocating for this? Because the CDC has to make a pretty serious decision. That's a big decision to say if we are going to, with every 6-month-old, give them a shot or not. There's liability with that, too. The only issue I have, however, is are the pharmaceutical companies going to say, you know what, you don't need to buy my product. You're all good. I don't think they're going to do that. The pharmaceutical companies are going to make a case that their product is still necessary. So how do you prove that your vaccine with waning immunity saved a person's life? When we were talking about hydroxychloroquine and its role, and there was mixed studies saying it helps, others saying it didn't help, I thought one of the easiest studies we could do is look at all the people taking Plaquenil or hydroxychloroquine for their lupus or for whatever other medical condition they're using it for. And those prescribed it in 2019 and stayed on it through 2020. How was their COVID illness? 1, did they get COVID? 2, was the illness severe or not? What dosing were you taking of the hydroxychloroquine? And were there any people who died despite? It's a pretty easy study to do. Why isn't anybody doing that? So there are ways to study it, but to look at, okay, you guys got the vaccine. Did you get COVID? I don't think so. No, I'm good. We need to have some better data. And if it does show that COVID vaccine is necessary, that one of the reasons why we are having fewer deaths is because these people are getting vaccinated, then good. We need to know that. then we could recommend it. But if we're finding that, these kids, we're not seeing 6-month-olds get COVID, and they're getting all these other vaccines when they're 6 months old, then maybe we wait till they're older. But why not look at it? There's nothing wrong with that. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret.
Powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So corporations would love to replace the doctor. Patients would love to replace the doctor. They want their antibiotics, and they don't want their doctor saying, nope, you have a virus. They want their pain medicine, and they don't want their doctor saying, no, exercise and just use Tylenol or Motrin. And so there are all these forces and pressure for us medical providers to not be in the picture. And who would be in the picture if it's not us? AI. The problem with AI is even though we keep seeing studies going, wow, look at what AI has done. Look at how AI, supersedes what humans can do. We're also seeing that AI is a mixed bag. And when we see that students and kids are being told to kill themselves or be angry with their parents or skip school, we're wondering what these chatbots are actually telling our kids to do, which is kind of frightening. And so there are states that are now looking at banning some of these AI programs because of the risk to the user. We're just not there yet. Remember, it's AI, it's not a human. And artificial intelligence goes, oh, well, they're intelligent. And I get, some humans out there are idiots. And I've seen some idiot doctors but we're just not ready to trust a computer. So now psychotherapists are warning that as it pertains to psychotherapy and AI, that people could be sliding into, quote, a dangerous abyss. According to The Guardian, psychotherapists and psychiatrists say they were increasingly seeing negative impacts of AI chatbots being used for mental health, fostering emotional dependence, exacerbating anxiety symptoms, self-diagnosis, amplifying delusional thought patterns, dark thoughts, and suicidal ideation. Now, some of you will say, Dr. Daliah, how could a computer have that control? Well, one, we gave it that control, but think about it. If somebody came home and said, my therapist said this, right? What if, I got dumped and he or she said this? What do we say as friends or family or support members? We say the person's an idiot. The person has secondary gain. That person wanted that, your boyfriend for themselves. And so because the person's a human, we humanize them. And humanizing something suggests that they have faults. Well, kids and adults in the computer generation look to the computer as they're not wrong. It's accurate. If you do a math problem, if you do it yourself as a human, there's a chance of you getting it wrong. If you use a computer, it's always going to be the right answer. So we have been getting trained that these computers are right. That's a problem. So now if a computer is telling somebody, no, you shouldn't be upset about that or this or whatever, they're like, well, the computer said so. The computer is 100% correct. And you as family support can't say, oh, it's messed up. They're like, but it's the computer. The same thing that is giving me my math, my weather, the weather is sometimes wrong. Even pi, your calculator is wrong because pi 3.14, it goes on digits, I think thousands of digits. But your calculator might stop at only 8 characters. Is 1/3 really 0.33333? When do you stop? The calculator goes 0.3333333. How long do those threes go? So if you go 0.33 for 1/3, you're wrong. Because 0.33 times 3 is 0.99. So even computers can be wrong. And having to explain that is difficult. It's really easy to humanize a person. And they say, look, you're going to find a different person that's going to say a different thing. But because we don't have enough mental health workers, there's more push for there to use AI. Also, a lot of people have these crappy Obamacare plans, so it's cheaper for them to go online than to see a person and pay a copay. And AI is being used for this more and more. And if somebody is vulnerable, they could kill themselves. Seeing some of these answers, that's okay to stay in your room for a month. It's okay to not eat. An AI answer might be alcohol sedates. People get sleepy with alcohol. So what? Is it going to suggest to somebody to use alcohol if they can't sleep? We're not there yet. There has to be oversight. I hate government oversight, but we're not ready. One study in July reported that AI may amplify delusional or grandiose content in interactions with users vulnerable to psychosis. They said that chatbots, according to the author, Dr. I don't know if I has a name, but it was a study. Hamilton Morin. He said chatbots undermined an effective treatment for anxiety known as exposure and response prevention, which requires people to face feared situations and avoid safety behaviors. They said the 24-hour availability of chatbots resulted in a lack of boundaries and a risk of emotional dependence. And he said in the short term, it alleviates the stress, but actually it perpetuates the cycle. There was also studies that the longer you use it, AI chatbots may be more accurate short term. But if somebody's talking to it for an hour, it starts to wane. So it all's dependent on the programming. And what if somebody's being diagnosed with depression or anxiety, they have a thyroid condition. They have an abnormal heartbeat. People are starting to have negative experiences. They said some of the conversations with these AI chatbots were inappropriate at best, dangerously alarming at worst. He said a lot of people with ADHD or autistic people are starting to use these chatbots. But the large language models don't read subtext and all the contextual and nonverbal cues. That's what we as therapists or family doctors can pick up on. I remember students coming into my office going, yeah, doc, crazy weather, huh? The weather's kind of crazy. And I go, close the door. And I go, you hate what you're studying. You hate medicine. You don't, they're like, how did you know? I go, because I just know. Because the average student feels that somewhere through their training. And then they worry because they didn't like a rotation or they didn't like a doctor who was yelling or screaming at them. And then they feel like they're in the wrong field. That's common. It's normal. Now let's talk about what you do like and get your fire back. But if you tell a chatbot, oh, yeah, it's okay, it's fine, or how's the weather, are they really going to pick up on that? One thing in medicine, one of the hardest things in medicine we had to do is discern if somebody was being abused or raped or assaulted or suicidal based on them coming in with the chief complaint. And if their chief complaint is, I have a cold. Okay, you have a cold. Let's talk about this. Okay, well, because and then you had to dig deeper. So if states are starting to ban the use of them, I'm supportive of that because I don't think that they're ready for prime time yet. 1-877-Daliah.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99-799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99-799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99-799. Again, FREE to 99-799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So I was pretty impressed that our capital, Washington, D.C., one of the prettiest cities in America, I really love D.C., got cleaned up in terms of crime and carjackings because Trump sent troops to help the police. And even though the media said, well, it's a federal takeover and they're sidelining the police, they partnered with the police. And the residents seem happy. Fewer carjackings, homicides. I mean, it's been amazing. Sadly, Chicago, New York, there's been a lot of It was bloody this weekend. I think there were shootings in the Bronx, shootings in Chicago. A grandmother who was in Harlem, just walking with her walker, got shot by a stray bullet to her head. And so I love our police force. God bless our first responders, but there's not enough of them. And with Mom Donnie and everybody a few years ago saying defund the police, it happened. And they don't have the support and the boots on the ground that they need to the degree of the crime. So when there were these riots starting in California, Trump sent some federal troops to make sure that people would be safe because people were getting hurt. You saw in one video a body just lying there in front. We don't know how that person got killed, but they were at the protest or the riot or whatever and ends up getting killed. So it is the commander-in-chief's job. Everybody said, no, you have to be mayor. That's the mayor's job. It is the commander-in-chief's job to make sure Americans are safe. He's the commander-in-chief. He could deputize to the mayors, but if the mayors aren't going to do jack diddly squat, then he does have to step in. So with federal troops coming in, they were more peaceful. Yet we're being told that U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer has issued an ordering prohibiting troops from engaging in security patrols, riot control, arrests, searches, crowd control. Now, the order does not take effect until September 12th. This way, the Trump administration can appeal. But really? They're saying use of federal troops in Los Angeles is unlawful, being that California, especially L.A., has been notorious for riots going deadly. You know, we had during a Black Lives Matter protest, a cop get shot in the head. Our officers need protection. Our citizens need protection. That's why we're paying for the National Guard. That's why we're paying for these services. Setting up perimeters, crowd control. You know, having a military presence who is there to protect, you know, and prevent civilians and allow people to peacefully assemble is a good thing. But they cite an 1878 Posse Comitatus Act, if I'm pronouncing that right, that limits the military from being involved in civilian law enforcement unless Congress approves it or under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution. There was one exception, which was the Insurrection Act that was signed by President Thomas Jefferson. In the Insurrection Act, it says whenever there is an insurrection in any state against the government, the president may, upon the request of its legislator or of its governor, if the legislature cannot be convened, call into federal service such of the militia of the other states in the number requested by that state, the use such of the armed forces as he considers necessary to suppress the insurrection. Another provision states, according to, and I want to give credit where credit's due, this is ABC News. I apologize. That whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages or rebellion against the authority of the United States makes it impracticable to enforce the laws of the United States in any state by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. So when you have people sitting on a freeway blocking people from driving to work or getting to a hospital, if California's government is not helping their citizens out, according to this act, the president can't come in. So now this is going to, be appealed. I don't know if it's going to the Supreme Court, but, Chicago, I think there were 56 deaths? No, 54 shot over the weekend. And the mayor of Chicago is like, no. We don't want, Trump's help. In the Bronx, there was a shooting outside a church. It happened on Marion Avenue near Fordham University. 2 people shot. A third victim grazed in the back of the head. There was a deadly shooting last week that caused Mayor Eric Adams to increase police officers by a presence of 1,000 officers in that borough. But we have a crime problem. It's getting better in some areas, but in areas where they're not going to get prosecuted or they're going to be, caught and released and go back out there, there's a problem. And our job is to make sure that citizens are safe. They shouldn't fear following traffic laws. They shouldn't fear being at a four-way stop and getting carjacked. If not, nobody's going to follow the laws. And sadly, where we are right now is you just can't trust people. That kid that got killed for doing ding-dong ditch, they didn't enter the property. They did they hit the doorbell, they ran, and somebody gunned him down while he was running away. We have individuals, I think it was in Houston, we have individuals that just, don't care about other people. And that's why we have law enforcement. That's why we have National Guard. That's why we have the military. So these federal judges saying, nope, you can't do it, you can't do it. Well, then what happens if there's another riot and people get hurt? Who's that on? Is that on the commander-in-chief? Apparently the mayors don't care, the governors don't care. They just keep getting reelected. And I want people safe. And the idea that these judges, and the funny thing is read the room. You got to read the room. We want safety. Now, we also want to win the lottery. I guess the Powerball jackpot hits $1.3 billion. I don't play Powerball. I've never won. But boy, are people excited about this one. $1.3 billion. This is the biggest lottery prize since April 2024. No tickets matched. All 6 numbers drawn Monday night. Obviously, when you win, you're not bringing home the $1.3 billion after taxes. You may get $589 million. So that's less than half for a one lump sum or spread over 30 annualized payments. If the lump sum is chosen, actually, wait a second. Even less. The lump sum would be $447.6 million. Now, you could do really, really well with $447.6 million, but that is, $1.3 billion, that's almost $1 billion less than what you won. There's a mandatory withholding of 24%. They say, depending on taxable income, the winner could face a federal marginal rate as high as 37%, drop their $1.3 billion prize money to $371 million. Okay, I don't understand how losing $1 billion equals 37% in taxes. That makes no sense. But they say the winner also may face taxes like New York tax lottery winnings, and other sorts of taxes. So I don't know. See, I would be thinking I want the 30 payments because I would want more money because I'm sure that would be a lot of money. But then on the other end, with that kind of money, I could buy a football team like the Dallas Cowboys. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.